are continuing to move forward.
As restrictions on who can get tested are lifted, and now you were saying 28,000 Iowans were tested last week for COVID-19, and as more restrictions are being lifted on June 1st, I'm curious, how is the state going to be able to identify when spikes are occurring to be able to make the decision to put restrictions back in place? I know you had just mentioned the 13.1% positive rate for testing, but what's the data behind being able to identify spikes that can or will or could possibly occur, even with the large amount of Iowans that are now going to be allowed to be tested?
Yeah, well, that's great, because that really helps us monitor it on a statewide perspective. When you think about it, in March, we tested 7,884 Iowans. In April, we tested 42,000 Iowans. And through Friday, in May, we tested 84,023 Iowans. So the capacity, it's encouraging to see our ability to really meet the needs of Iowans that want to get tested. And so we got to stop looking at the numbers, at the positive. We got to look at trends. We got to look at 14-day trends. We got to look at 3-day trends. We got to look at hospitalization trends. We've got to look at positivity. We've got to look at days to spread, days to double. And if you look at all of those criteria that I just mentioned, all of them are trending downward. So that tells us that we can continue to open up. We can continue to provide testing to Iowans, and really the really important component of that is the case investigation and the contact tracing. So that allows us to get in there and again identify the positive cases from the testing that we're able to implement, and then start to figure out who they've been in contact with so we can get in front of it, make them aware that they've potentially been exposed to somebody that tested positive, so they're aware and that they're monitoring, that they're, if they want to self-isolate at home, they can for 14 days, but if they're out in public, and they should social distance, and for sure they should wear a mask, and if they start to exhibit symptoms, then they absolutely should isolate themselves. So we're also able to look at data on a real time. That's something else that Test Iowa has been able to bring to the table. Not only a comprehensive case management system, real-time data, a website that every day is providing more and more information to Iowans, and our ability to manage an uptick, a cluster, maybe a little bit of a spike, so that we can get in there and figure out what's going on. Sometimes it's because we're actually proactively and strategically in a county testing areas that we think potentially might be a hotspot, to get some sense of if there is additional virus activity there, what is the scope, and how do we maintain it and contain it so that we can protect Iowans in the long run. Okay. What was your follow-up?
Is there a specific threshold that the state is going to be considering when we do if we start to see any spikes at all?
We're going to continue to look at trends. We're going to look at 3-day, 14-day hospitalization. If we see any type of a surge that might impact our ability to take care of Iowans, those with COVID-19 symptoms and those without, then that potentially could be a point where we would have to say, do we need to take a look at what's happening here? Do we need to possibly take additional actions? But for the most part, we're going to, all indicators that we're looking at and monitoring when we look at trends, it's positive. And Iowans, you're a big part of that. So keep doing what you're doing. You're being personally responsible. Businesses are doing the right thing. And because of that, we're going to continue to move forward, and we're going to get our lives back to normal, or some normalcy. And so I just want to encourage Iowans to keep doing the great work that they're doing. When you're out and about, social distance. If you can't social distance, make sure you have a face covering with you. And again, just a tremendous shout out to our businesses out there who are being so responsible and taking care of their employees as well as their customers. So I think together we're going to continue to do what Iowans always do, and we're going to continue to do the right thing. We're going to continue to be responsible, and we're going to continue to open this state back up.